is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Jeff Palmer from the Case Acceptance Academy. And sitting to his right is Dr. Thomas Bursich. And my gosh, this is going to be so fun. One of the nation's preeminent experts in the field of dental treatment plan acceptance. Jeff Palmer, founder of Case Acceptance Academy, understands the subjects from all angles. His revolutionary methodologies for improving case acceptance aren't based on mere theories, but years of hard-won experience. Because he has worked as a salesperson, a dental management consultant, a dental office manager, and also a practice owner, he's had to apply everything he teaches in the real world and get results. And sitting next to him is Dr. Thomas Bursich, who's a Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania native and a huge Steelers football fan. He graduated from Duquesne University Pharmacy School, and after successfully operating pharmacies in the late 70s and early 80s, he went back and attended the University of Oklahoma School of Dentistry and graduated in 84. He currently practices in Sterling, Virginia, all facets of general dentistry, from simple extractions, root canals, crown and bridge, implants, Invisalign, and veneers. Dr. Bursich has been the main contributor of Case Acceptance Academy from a clinical applicant standpoint. Dr. Bursich is a very personable, highly skilled clinician with a down-to-earth, chairside manner that has helped him build 2 successful practices. These skills have been engineered into the case acceptance system, making predictable results possible for the dentists across the country. And I wanted you guys to come on the show so bad because so many times people are always worried about the wrong thing. And when you look at the data for just decay, just cavities that show up on bite wings, only 38% of diagnosed cavities get drilled, filled, and billed. And what's the dentist's question? Well, what bonding agent do you use? What composite do you use? Dude, you don't even remove the decay 2 out of 3 times. You'd be twice as good of a doctor if you could do 2 out of 3 cavities instead of 1 out of 3. And, you know, I got 4 kids and 4 grandkids. I don't want my grandkids going to some dentist that can't even convince them to get their filling done. I mean, and then I'm in so many dental offices where they'll be in a medical dental building, and there's 4 dentists in there, and the average dentist is doing $750 collection, taking home $175, and then there's a guy over here doing $1.3 million, taking home $350, and they have the same number of charts, the same number of everything, the same economy, the same government, the same everything. But the one guy is able to get 2 out of 3 people to get their filling done, and the other 3 only get 1 out of 3 to get their filling done. And then the guy getting 1 out of 3 filling done thinks he's all that in a bag of chips because he's got his FAGD and his MAGD and his diplomat, and who gives a crap. And the bottom line is the dentist that can remove the infection 2 out of 3 times is better than the dentist that can only remove the infection 1 out of 3 times. And that's what you guys are all about. Tell us about the Case Acceptance Academy.
So I met my father-in-law originally from working for another management company, and for 15 years I worked on the phone back in starting in '94, before the age of the internet. So doctors would send in a postcard because they wanted to know how to get in more new patients, and of course my job was then to sell them that course over the phone. So for 15 years I did that and talked to probably about 10,000 dentists. So I became very good at talking to dentists on the phone, finding out what's going on in their practice and helping them to fix it. Now, in reality, what happened is when they came to the company, we looked at the numbers, we discovered, 9 out of 10 times that they couldn't sell. So then we would teach them how to sell dentistry, and the program worked really well. But after 15 years of doing that, I decided I wanted to work on my own. And so I called up my father-in-law, who had a practice in Erie, Pennsylvania at the time. And this was in 2009. So this was the beginning of the recession. So I said, hey, I want to do something new. And would you be interested in going into a partnership where I can come and actually try what I've been telling other doctors to do for 15 years and see how I do? And so then that's how the Case Acceptance Academy was born.
Nice. So Erie, Pennsylvania, that's on the Erie Canal.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot more Erie than the canal. They just had 130 inches of snow in December. So they got a lot of snow up there. So we were up there for 5 years and then sold that practice and moved down to Sterling a few years ago.
Nice. So, it's weird how dentists routinely say they admit it. They say, I hate selling dentistry. I didn't go to school 8 years to be a salesman. I hate selling dentistry. I mean, they have a psychological barrier against it, and a lot of them think, and then a lot of them slam it. They go, I'm not a used car salesman. I don't sell dentistry, and it's like, that's just a bad attitude, because if you don't sell that you have 12 cavities and you need to get them all filled, then we can't do our job.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was one of the main things that I had to figure out how to do, was how to come up with a system that made the dentistry sell itself, basically. Because, dentistry is such a unique profession. Everybody has to go to the dentist eventually, even if they're just going to get their extractions. So it's one of the few businesses where people are coming to you because they need what it is that you're offering. And the challenge becomes is that most of the time they don't feel the pain of a cavity. That's the reason why they're hard to get accepted. The acute abscess is a lot easier, but the cavities are difficult because they don't feel. So that's really the opportunity, is teaching dentists how to present the diagnosis, not the solution, not the treatment, how to present the diagnosis so the patient says, you know what, I don't like this and I want to fix it. What do I do about that, doc? And that's really the simplicity of it.
And it's not just the dentist, it's even the front desk. It takes 3 people to call a dental office before the receptionist can close one of them and get them appointed, and the dentist doesn't even measure that. And then you'll see him at a Gordon Christian seminar saying, well, Healy Muller wears at 11 microns a year, Tetrick Strand wears at 14 microns a year. Which one do you recommend? It's like, dude, 3 people just called your front desk and said, well, how much is a crown? And she said $1,000, 2 hang up. And the third one only came in because they actually were going to come in no matter what. And then you sit there and say, my God, the front desk can't, if she just closed 2 out of 3 inquiries into a scheduled patient, the practice doubles. Fix that. When you tell 3 people they each have a cavity and only one gets it done, and now you get 2 people to done, you doubled your practice again. You fix both ends. Now you got a several $1 million a year practice. But dentists don't think like that. They always think, should I buy a laser?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's one of the things that we teach as a part of engineered case acceptance, is how to schedule 8 or 9 out of the 10 people, and not just schedule them, but have them show up in the office. So that's something that we measure, and we teach our clients how to measure, is how many people are calling and how many people arrive as a butt in the seat. And that's the biggest hole in the funnel.
So let's start with the funnel. So your caseacceptanceacademy.com starts with the incoming call.
Number 1. Yep, the incoming call, because if you don't have enough people coming in, you don't have enough people to sell.
And how many dentists, in your estimate, even measure how many incoming calls they have per month?
So when I do this seminar and there's 15 doctors in the room, and I say, how many of you know how many new patients you've seen last month? 8 out of 10 say they know how many they've seen. And I say, okay, well, how many of you know how many new patients called your office? And 1 out of 15 or 10 will raise their hand. They don't measure how many called, because there's only one way to do it, really, and that's by writing down a little hash mark at the front desk, right? That's the only way to do it. So they don't do it because call monitoring, the call tracking will measure calls coming in, but not all those calls are new patients, right? So you have to listen to every call to even see if they're new patients.
Yeah, that every time the 2 major practice management systems has an upgrade, it's always like changing the font or adding some useless feature. It's like, well, why don't you connect the damn thing up to the incoming phone call so that when they call, right, if you're an existing patient, it pulls up your screen, and if they're not in your system, says new patient alert, so that you can sit there and put the other call on hold or whatever and focus on this and converting it to above the seat. So you want to start with the incoming call to try to increase that conversion rate? I mean, you're saying that you think 8 or 9 out of 10 could come in. I mean, God, if you could just get 2 out of 3, your Case Acceptance Academy would be priceless.
Yes. Well, that's the first thing that I teach is how to do that. And, as you know, there's plenty of people that will teach how to schedule a new patient. And my particular system, though, was developed because I worked on the phone for 15 years, calling into doctors' offices and selling doctors. And then I went into a dental office, and in 2009, the beginning of the recession, we were advertising for a free comprehensive exam and x-ray. So everybody knows in dentistry that when you advertise free, you get horrible patients. Well, that was the only way we were getting the phone to ring, and on top of that, it was a fee-for-service practice. So I had to listen to a lot of phone calls and schedule some patients myself, and then I came up with this method of how to basically handle the number one thing that when people are answering the phone, they mess up. And what that is when someone calls into the office, they usually have a question for the front desk, such as, do you have Saturday hours? Do you take Delta Dental? How much does a crown cost? And the number one thing that the person likes to do at the front desk is try to answer the question. And it sounds like human nature to answer a question, but the moment you start answering the question and you give them an answer they don't like, they go click. So what we do is we teach them how to basically take control of that conversation. And so when you take control of the conversation and you start controlling it, then you can actually get them to schedule and come in and answer their question. Right? But the number one thing is you got to take control of the conversation, because if the patient is controlling the conversation, then they're going to hang up if they don't like what they're going to hear, or they'll schedule and then not show up.
So do you want to go over some of those questions and how you would answer them? Or?
Sure. Yeah. So you're the new patient calling up. What's the thing that they call your office, or you hear them say the most that patients want to know?
Well, actually, I'm a dentist, so I actually don't really answer incoming phone calls. I mean, you would know that more than me. I mean, like you said.
So they usually say, how much does a implant cost? So they call up and they'd say, how much does an implant cost? Now, most people would say, they tell their front, well, don't give out prices over the phone. Right? So what you would say is, I'd be happy to help you with that. May I have your name? So all you're doing is you're asking the person for their name, and they're going to say, well, my name is Mary. Oh, okay, well, thank you, Mary. So what's the best number to get a hold of you in case we get disconnected? Well, it's 222-555-44. Okay, great. So you need an implant. Has another doctor diagnosed you needing an implant? And now we can have a conversation about it, right? Rather than, well, doc said we can't give out prices over the phone. Or an implant is $3,000, right? So the first thing is to actually take control of the conversation, and then you can have a conversation about what it is that they need, right? What is the actual need? That's the number two thing. Take control and find out exactly what they need.
And I love it. Take control and start a conversation instead of just saying the answer is X. Let's start doing something to create a conversation. What do you think of the fact that when some doctors tell their front desk that they can't give out prices? What do you think of that advice in general?
Well, I understand why they do it, but consumers today are very educated. And when you're doing a search for implants, the search is how much do implant cost? And usually when they go to another doctor, the number one shocker is how much it costs. So what they're doing is they're shopping around on price, right? So the consumers are smart. So if you say, well, we don't give out prices, then they're going to say, well, sorry, I want to know how much it costs. And I want to know how much their implant cost and the abutment cost and the crown cost. And they're going to start to drill you, right? So you have to start by taking control. And maybe you're going to schedule and maybe you're not. But you definitely don't have a shot if you just say, well, it's our office policy that we don't give out prices over the phone.
Now, how long have you been doing the Case Acceptance Academy on your own now?
Since 2009.
So 2009 to 2018, so 9 years.
Yeah.
What % of the time do you tell the doc, I'm sorry, but that that person up there can't answer the phone. They don't have it. They can't. They're not trainable. You need to get a new
More
one.
than 50%.
Yeah.
More than 50%.
And I think a lot. Do you think a lot of that is, birds of a feather flock together? So the only reason you got into dental school or medical school is because you were the nerd geek who sat in the library every night while all the people who were joining frats and had girlfriends and going to bars, they didn't get accepted in dental school or medical school. So this guy, after sitting in the library for 4 years, he wants to hire a librarian for an assistant, a librarian for a desk. I mean, if you go and I tell dentists, you can smell $1 million practice the instant you walk in. All the dental offices doing 750. You walk in there and you're back in the library, and it's just
Right.
And then when you go in there and someone's like, "Oh my God, Jeff, how are you doing? Did you watch the Super Bowl?" It's $1 million practice. So
Right.
half of the time you're saying the dentist hired someone like themselves, afraid of their own shadow, and they're not even capable of answering the phone.
Right. Exactly. They're capable of answering people's questions.
Right.
They're not capable of selling a person on an appointment.
Yeah, and then he can tell me everything about his bonding agent, but he can't tell me how many incoming calls he had for 2017. He can't.
Right.
Some of these offices, you go in there and you start digging deep, and you find out that every month 37 messages are left on voicemail, and no one even checked it.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
he tells the guy that he's spending money to do advertising that he's a loser because the advertising's not working. It's like, what percent of incoming calls in the average dental office go to voicemail?
I think, from what I've seen, somewhere around 30 or 40%, and some of that is even during business
Right,
hours.
right.
So,
So they can only convert 1 out of 3 to come in, and that's the one begging to come in, and they lose 2 out of 3. That's we're talking about that funnel. 30 to 40% go to voicemail, and the dentist doesn't even know, doesn't even have a measurement on it. And then you say, "Hey,
Right.
what do you think of your girl up there, Rwanda?" "Oh, she's awesome." Based on what?
right.
Based on what? What data do you have that she's awesome? And that's not
But
how.
she shows up on time. She shows up on time.
And she's nice, and she smiles.
nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. So
Right.
when you sign up for the Case Acceptance Academy, do you do this all virtual, or is there boots on the ground in the dental office? How's that work?
We do a combination of both. So what I do is I go to the office, or they come to me for 2 days, and we go through 2 days of training on how to answer the phone, how to talk to patients when they come in, how to present cases, how to present finances, how to handle objections, and all the stats to keep track of. And then over 6 months, we do virtual training. We listen to phone calls. We have them record consults and we review them. We set up the numbers and we teach them how to manage by the numbers.
And what is your track record over 9 years working with my homies?
So the average person that comes to me is doing about 30% case acceptance, just like you said, right? So that when I run the numbers, it's just 30%. So usually they'll get up to somewhere around 40 or 50% comprehensive case acceptance. So the same thing on the phones. When we start tracking the phones, usually they're somewhere, we call it a scheduling efficiency. So they're usually somewhere around 60 or 50% on the scheduling efficiency. So then usually we push them up to around 80%.
What percent are they on scheduling efficiency?
They're about 50 or 60%.
Okay. And what do you get them
And
up
then we
to?
push them up to 80% plus.
Those are huge numbers. So is it cheaper to go see you for 2 days than you come to my office for 2 days?
Yes.
So what's the price of each, and what's the difference now? What's 2 days of training if they go to Washington D.C.? Well, you're in Sterling, which is 20 miles west of Washington D.C.
Yep. So it's $14,000 for 2 days, and then also for the mentorship for the 6 months afterwards. And that's to train your whole team.
So so your program is $14,000 for 2 days of training and 6 months of mentorship.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I go to see you, then it costs more depending on where you are. I'm going to see an office in a couple of weeks, probably in 3 weeks, and they have 45 staff. They have a 20 operatory office, and then they have some satellites. So I'm charging them more because there's going to be more people training, more manuals, more follow-up, right? So I kind of tailor make it based on the circumstance because they already have.
What do you think that office already collects? What do you think that office does a year?
9 million.
Okay, see, so homies, listen. You always want to spend $145,000 on a CAD cam, which you don't need. $135,000 on a laser, you don't need. You don't blink at spending $100,000 on a CBCT. Yeah, but the people who spend money on consultants, look at this guy, $9 million. $9 million.
Yeah, he knows his closing rate's already 30%. He knows that. And he's like, if you take me to 40%, he goes, do you know what that's going to do to my practice? And I'm like, exactly. So I know I'm not charging him enough, Howard. I know I'm not charging enough, but just by taking him up a few percentage points on $9 million, he's going to have a huge effect on
I'm romantically in love with my dentist, the fact that I admire their passion to just want to keep learning more and more clinical dentistry. I admire those guys who get their FAGD, MAGD, and their diplomats. I love the fact that they love their art, their craft, they're surgeons. They work with their hands all day in an operatory. Their dentists are all surgeons. I love that. But my God, if you love surgery, you can do twice as much of it if you get your house in order. And that's where they go, 14,000. That's a lot of money. Well, what if it was $140,000? Here's an idea. Right now, you take an Imper gum impression for $17, send it to your lab man who's made 10,000 crowns, and you get it back in 2 weeks. Here's your idea. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get a $140,000 CAD cam and have my assistant, who's never milled a crown in her life, I'll have her start doing it. I mean, it's almost like every time they get a great idea, it's the wrong idea. And then when I say you spend all your money only on consultants, just get your business, get so efficient and rich, then you can buy a CAD cam the same way you'd buy a Porsche. Then you can buy a millennial BioLace the same way you bought your cabin. Just get your house in order and then buy your toys. I know boys need toys. I get it. I raised 4 boys. They wouldn't take a bath unless there were 20 things floating in the bathtub. They wouldn't play in the sandbox unless there were 20 Tonka building trucks and all that stuff. I get it. But you got to get your house in order. And $14,000 for 2 days of training and 6 months of mentorship, you're going to get all that back on the acceptance of one case for $14,000.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So you said, first of all, when you say a 30% case acceptance, you walk into an office. The 2 major systems are Dentrix and EagleSoft. How do you measure case acceptance? What data are you looking at?
Good question. So the easiest lazy man way to do it is to take the last year and you pull the report that says undone treatment. Okay? So you take the report, it's like all the dentistry that was treatment planned that was not accepted. Then for that same time period, you run the collections. Okay, now this is going to take everything into account, all the hygiene, all the exams, everything. This is why it's, kind of lazy, but it is a workable way to do it. So you add those 2 together. So let's just do simple math here, right? So let's just say that you produced you collected $1 million and you had $3 million in undone treatment. Okay? So you add those 2 together, what do you get? 4 million, right?
Yep.
Then you divide the collections by the 4 million because that's what you actually had accepted. That was your acceptance, is what the money came into the bank. So that's a 25% case acceptance rate. So that's on the simple math, right? So you normally, when I do that equation, it's somewhere between 30 and on the high side 40%, but usually it's around 30%. Like that's what we did with this $9 million practice. He knew, and I ran the math to check it, they're at 30% across the board. So what we do and what we do in our office here, we're at about 50% or greater.
In whose office?
So
In Tom Bursich's office?
yeah, so this is my lab right here. This is where I practice everything that I'm teaching to people in this
And
practice.
Tom, you're running a 50%?
Yes.
That's awesome, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is comprehensive case acceptance. This isn't like just presenting what the insurance will pay this year, right? So this is comprehensive case acceptance. But as a part of the process, what we're doing is we do something I call a pre-consult interview, where the treatment coordinator is meeting with the patient before the exam to find out, what does the patient want? What do they need? Do they have any, anxiety? Do they have any budget concerns, right? And we're really finding out where this patient is at. Because one of the things that really shocks patients is when they think they have no problems, and then they get to the doctor after he's done his, exam and gone over the x-rays, and they're like, now I got all these problems. And then that's when trust begins to be, to be waned, because it's like, hey, I didn't know I had anything. I don't have any pain, right? Or, I've been seeing this doctor I love for 30 years, and he never told me I had any problems, and now you're telling me I need all this dentistry? So we have a way of finding out what's going on in the patient's head. So if there's a lot of stuff showing up on x-ray, we have a certain conversation with them.
We're talking about a 50% case acceptance rate. Congratulations on that. I wonder who had a higher pass acceptance rate. Terry Bradshaw from 70 to 83 or Ben Rothschild from 2004 to present. Which one of them had a better case acceptance receiver treatment plan acceptance?
Let's see here. Uncle Terry.
Yeah, man. When I grew up, he was the man. He was my.
Yep.
What did he get? 4 Super Bowls?
He did, yes.
Yeah, what amazing. My gosh, that is do you have like a JPEG of that formula? I mean, is that a slide in your seminar?
Yeah.
You
You
should email me that, howard@dentaltown.com, and put your www.caseacceptanceacademy.com, and just say something on that. Everyone should figure out this number. It's so easy. I love the lazy man deal. I mean, that is a nice deal, and it'll blow the dentist's mind. I mean, they have no idea how much money they're leaving on the table. And it's not about money leaving on the table in business. It's about untreated disease.
Right.
I mean, that's what irks me. What irks me the most is, friends, family. You're always meeting people. Well, he said I took my kid there. He said he had 3 cavities. I said, you get them done? I said, no. And I said, why? Half the time, they don't even know why.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it blows my mind. They're like, well, he told you your kid had 3 cavities. Well, did you do them? I mean, and that's why he preached same-day dentistry. Damn, they're standing in your office. They're standing in your office, and your first gut reflex is to walk them up front and schedule them for an appointment. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you just do it right damn now? And you know what they say?
Right.
Well, we don't have a chair. Oh, so you got money for staff and lab and supplies and mortgage and equipment and computer and insurance and professional dues, but you don't have money for an extra chair? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I tell them, if they're as fat as me, why don't they work through lunch? The last thing Fat Albert needs is lunch. And they've got to get the case acceptance treatment up. If you get them from a 30% case acceptance to a 40%, which you say is doable, all the way to 50%, what Tom's doing, I mean, you just made them, 25 to 50% better as a dentist.
Right. And they're going to, over a career, that's several $1 million in production.
Yeah.
Several million, when you start young.
What other metrics do you measure? We're still at the front right now, right?
Yeah.
What other metrics are you keying in on the front desk?
So, well, just on the sales funnel, we just pay attention to the new patients, right? So it's new patients called, new patients scheduled, and new patients seen. So that's the receptionist's main numbers.
Called, scheduled, and seen.
Yep.
Nice.
So, and part of the thing with the case acceptance is, so then once they're there, the 2 main metrics we track is dollar value of treatment presented, and then dollar value of treatment accepted. And the accepted number gets a little bit difficult for some people to track, but here's the way that I define it. Accepted means the patient has paid for the procedure. So what we do is everybody, they go for a formal treatment presentation, even if it's, a few fillings, and everybody has an out-of-pocket. Even if they have insurance, they're going to have an out-of-pocket. So let's just say even the insurance is $30 out of pocket. So in order for the person to book the appointment, which is very logical to do after we've gone through our process, they will make a 50% or 100% of their out-of-pocket to reserve the time in the doctor's schedule. So we say we require 50% of the out-of-pocket to reserve the time in the doctor's schedule, and most everybody commits to that. So on the back end on scheduling, it's not very difficult because people are already financially committed to their appointments that are in the schedule. Plus, it increases the cash flow in the case acceptance, right? So that's kind of how we handle it on the back end. So the most important part is getting them in, and then once they're in the system, it moves pretty smoothly.
And to prove that to the opposite extreme, whenever you go around the world or just in the United States, where they set up these free dental clinics for the poor. They're on Indian reservations, they're in Medicaid clinics, and when they're completely free, they have a 50% no-show rate. Everyone I've ever walked in for 30 years says, well, what do you do? Because half of our patients don't show up, but then if you double book and they both show up, what do you do? And I said, well, what you do is you don't let them make an appointment unless they open up their wallet and give you the same cash that they gave at KFC or Taco Bell or bought their last dime bag of weed, because if they don't have any skin in the game, they don't value it. And then people think you're crazy.
Right, exactly. And what we find is that, when we go through the process and the patient has said, yes, I want to get this done and this is why I want to get it done, they want to schedule, And we're not doing a whole lot of same-day dentistry because the schedule's so full, right? And we only have 4 operatories, but people commit and they come back. They commit financially and they come back for their appointment. And the ones that don't, Howard, really weren't committed to getting it done anyways, or they didn't have the money and they just didn't want to tell you. So you're eliminating a lot of the cancellations and no-shows because they weren't really committed. And they really don't have the money anyways, but they were just embarrassed to tell you.
Yeah, and the American people have right now $1.3 trillion on their credit card, and almost 85% of it is for shit. It's for crap.
It's for Bitcoin.
Yeah, and you can't get them to pay half of their out-of-pocket to schedule the appointment so they have skin in the game and show up, because you always diagnose the pocketbook and say they don't have money. And if you saw what was on that credit card bill between shoes and fast food and eating out, and I mean, what percent of that 1.3 trillion on a credit card do you think is an absolute need versus a want?
A fraction.
Right.
A small fraction.
You got to get them financially invested, and financial investment gets them emotionally invested.
Right. Yes. Well, and you know what we do, Howard, just on that line, speaking of the emotion, so prior to the financial conversation, we get them emotionally committed to that problem, right? It's like, speaking of doctors talking clinical, the number one mistake that dentists make in case presentations is they present the treatment before the patient owns the diagnosis, right? So they're talking about crowns, bridges, fillings, cavities, right? Rather than making sure the patient understands that if they have a filling, right now they have a cavity, and if the cavity doesn't get fixed, then it's going to be a root canal, and then if it's going to be a root canal, then it's going to be 10 times the cost of that filling, and then if you lose it, right? So when the person really understands it, like the dentist understands it, they're emotionally committed because most people don't want to lose their teeth, most people. Right, so it's just a little bit different conversation we have. So that they've already said, yes, I want to fix this. Yes, I want to save my teeth. How soon can I get started?
So I want to go back. So half the time, your expertise determines that we have the wrong person answering the phone. How do you figure that out? How do you fix that? How do you figure it out?
So
how do you figure that out?
So So we have the protocol. So the front desk is trained on the protocol. Everybody's trained on the protocol, including the doctor. And the doctor always says, yes, I want you to follow this protocol, right? So then once we go back, they always have some type of call tracking system. So we listen to the phone calls, okay? So we then assess the phone calls. We go through an assessment. We say, you did this, this, and this. This was good. This needs to improve. Now, the standard management protocol for progressive discipline is if the patient is trained twice and they don't get it on the third time, then they're not going to get it ever, right? So if we're training somebody and after 3 times they don't get it, then they're not going to get it on the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 10th, or 20th, right? So we know within a few phone calls and a few trainings if they're going to actually get it or not.
And here's the problem that dentists have. Again, they chose a profession of hands-on surgery on their fellow man. They're filled with empathy and sympathy and caring hands. And then you're a social animal, and you want your patients to be your friends, even though the most genius anthropologist of all time, Abraham Maslow, who came out with a hierarchy of needs, food, clothing, shelter, belongingness needs, all the way up to self-actualization, says that an employee cannot be your friend because you have to reserve the right to fire them. And you would never fire a friend because they need that paycheck for rent and mortgage and car payments and groceries and all that stuff. And that's why you have to emotionally distance yourself. I mean, you said you're a Steelers fan. Even a great like Terry Bradshaw needed a coach. And he needed a coach to push him. If the coach was his friend and Terry said, dude, I went out last night and got shit-faced. I didn't get home till 3. She's still laying in my bed. You care if I just not come in today? His friend would say, sure. But that's not what Terry Bradshaw needed for 4 Super Bowl. He needed some hard-ass guy that was pushing him, and your employees are not your friends. And I cannot believe how hard it is for dentists to fire people. And it's because they're hardwired to be tribal, to stick together, and it's so painful. And then when you tell them, Sheila E. up there's got to go, and they're just like, no, I love Sheila. I was like, okay, then go marry her and get her out of here, But she can't stay. And it's one of the most stressful things for a dentist, physician, empathy. I'm sure lawyers can do it all day long. I'm sure they don't have a heart or a soul. But for dentists, gosh darn it's so hard for them to fire them. But you got to do what's right. You got to do it for the patient.
And when you have the recordings, you have the objective. Okay,
I want to back you up a little bit when you said dentists have call tracking. No, they don't. How do they get set up for recording their phone calls? Do you do that for them, or do you usually use local vendors?
I actually I set them up with my marketing people, and he'll just use the call tracking, even if he's not doing their.
Is that the name of the company?
The name of the company is Patient Pursuit, and then his company is Express Promotion.
So the name of that company is Patient Pursuit?
Patient Pursuit is the name of the call tracking company.
Okay.
And then the company that will do it just for the website, like he'll set up the whole thing, and he'll do, put it on their website, because Patient Pursuit won't do that, right? Is Express Promotion.
And what percent of Patient Pursuit is in dentistry? What percent of their clients are in dentistry?
Most of them, they do medicine, but most of it I do believe is dentistry. They do medicine, they do veterinarians and some others. But the thing that's unique about Patient Pursuit is somebody actually listens to the call on their end, and they categorize it as a new patient or existing patient, and answered or not answered, and scheduled and not scheduled. So it's kind of unique in that somebody else is actually listening to the call first. On
Patient Pursuit. And you just said, okay, so there's basically 211,000, basically there's 150,000 dental offices and 1 million physician offices. But most are business and dentistry. So I know I'm hard on my homies, but as mismanaged your dental office is, the dentists and vets and chiropractors are 3 to 4 times as sophisticated as the MDs. I mean, every MD I go to still has the glass wall, slides it over, sticks the clipboard in front of me. I mean, if you think, so I'm very proud of dentists to be like that. So Patient Pursuit does that. Then the second one was what? Express?
So Promotion. Yeah.
Can you find that one? Express Promotions. And what percent of Express Promotions is in dentistry only?
90%.
Nice. And where are those companies out of?
They're in Springfield, Virginia, right over here, and they also he's one of the owners in the company is similar to me, is that he runs a dental office for his mother-in-law as well. So he practices in an office and then brings those services out to his clients.
Well, can you hook me up with him? I want him to come on a podcast.
Absolutely.
I think he should follow you. That's Patient Pursuit or Express Promotions?
Express Promotion.
Okay, do you know the owner of Patient Pursuit?
I do not.
Okay.
But I have contact there, yeah. They're out in Texas somewhere.
Yeah.
But I can connect you up.
Yeah, let's do that because I really want to get this done. I mean, this is we need to get this implemented and done. So, and one other technical question, the two major dental office management information systems are Henry Schein's Dentrix and Patterson's EagleSoft. I think they both suck. I use Open Dental, the only one.
We do too. Yeah.
You what?
We got Open Dental
Oh
too.
yeah, I know. But when you tell a dentist about it, they don't. They're like, you give them an hour lecture on why Open Dental is better than Dentrix or EagleSoft, and then they'll say, "Do you use a microfill or a hybrid?" So I remember I was teaching math to my oldest boy Eric one day. We were doing homework and we were doing math, and I explained this whole problem to him, and his what his next question was? He said, "Dad, did you know Michael Jordan scored 2,700 points last season?" I'm like, what does Michael Jordan have to do with this math homework? Anyway, but do any of the systems have a better or connected to the incoming call so that when I call you, like if you call my cell phone and you're in my iPhone, it comes up that, this is Jeff Palmer. When I used to have a landline, the number comes. Do any of these practice management systems have a connection to the incoming call, so it would pull up the screen?
The only one that I know that does that is Weave.
Yeah.
And
Another layer. They're out of Utah. So Weave.
Yeah.
Weave will merge. Do they merge that with Open Dental?
Yeah. But we used Weave, and the reliability of their phone system was not there
because it was an internet phone voice. It was their phone system, and they admitted it, and they because you get an alert when the phone goes down. They may have been working on it. People use it and they love it, and it would be awesome if that worked, but at the time, the phone was going down during the day and on the weekends. And when the phone goes down, even on the weekends, calls don't get forwarded. So we just couldn't tolerate. So let's technically explain it to our homies. So what that means is they use an internet phone, a voice over internet protocol. And it's bleeding edge technology. It's not completely perfect leading edge technology yet.
Well, we use a voice over IP now. It's just their system, for whatever the reason, couldn't handle what it was doing yet.
So Open Dental, Dentrix, EagleSoft, SoftDent, nobody really has a connection to incoming phone line to pull up the difference between if this is a patient record.
No, the only thing that we do is on the new patient calls, when they're a call, you can set up on the voice on the call tracking system to whisper in the phone that this is a new patient and from what referral source. So it'll say, mailer or website. So then it whispers in the person's phone, and only the person that's answering the phone can hear that. So they do know that it's at least more than likely a new patient when they're calling. But not before they pick up the phone. They got to pick up the phone and put it to their ear first.
Yeah, and healthcare and government are like the last two industries that don't have that.
Yeah.
I mean, Dairy Queen probably has it. Burger King probably has it. I mean, it's.
Yeah. I mean, you can watch your pizza being cooked online on your phone. You can see, hey, it's in the oven. The driver's coming.
I know, unbelievable. So then the other one was is it SEO.com, Ryan? Is that what you sent me? Yeah. When you Google that Express Promotions Dental, the only thing that comes up is SEO.com. Is that it?
Oh, no, that's not it. You got to spell the X with express with an X, not an E.
So then, what's next? What were you talking about next?
So
After I've
we were
interrupted you
talking about the
47 times.
treatment. Yeah, treatment presented and treatment accepted is where we kind of left off. Like that's, the other thing is that doctors are always paying attention to their production and collection numbers, right? Like they want more production, they want more collections. And the thing that I get them to focus on is focus on how much you're presenting first, because you will never ever collect what's not presented.
Nice.
Right? And if you have $1 million production goal and your closing rate is 30%, that means you need to present 3 million to collect $1 million. If you have a $1 million collection goal and your closing rate is 50%, then you only need to present 2 million. Right? So by focusing on those numbers presented in your closing rate, you could then figure out, okay, well, how much do we have to present and how much do we have to get accepted to make our goal? Because it's guaranteed that if you don't present enough treatment to get accepted, you will not make your goal. That's math, right? And so I really, bang in their heads, you have to focus on these numbers. And when you focus on these numbers and you can influence them positively, you'll be more likely to make your production and collection goal. It's not mysterious.
Okay, so I asked you earlier, what percent of the time is the person answering the phone not cut out for it? And you said it's half. So now my question is, what percent of the time do you tell the dentist, doc, look, you can't present dentistry. We need to get a treatment plan coordinator. And also we always hear things from people in the industry that most orthodontists within 2 years out of school will realize that the reason they become orthodontists is because they got A's in science and math and chemistry and physics, and they're not good at presenting ortho cases. And an ortho case is $6,500. So they'll be wondering why they're stuck at like 10, 12 starts a month. And then the old guy up the street who's getting 20 starts a month says, dude, nobody would hire you for sales. Get a treatment plan presenter. What percent of the time do you say to the dentist, you couldn't sell a heater to a freezing man? We need to get a treatment plan presenter.
Well, here's my approach, is that I like to teach the dentist how to do a case presentation, because the only person they're never going to fire and is never going to leave them is them. Now, I have the treatment coordinator as a part of the process, but we do something that's called a handoff, right? So the doctor's going to do their part, and I teach them a very quick way of how to go over the x-rays and the photos in a way that's non-clinical, that gets the patient to say, yes, I want to fix this. And when the treatment coordinator is then brought in to say, well, this is what the patient wants, they already know how much it's going to cost, they don't have any questions, now you can get it wrapped up. It goes fast, right? It's actually easier. Because the real, if you have a treatment coordinator that's great at closing, that's good, but you know what happens with treatment coordinators that are good at closing?
They get better jobs for more money?
And they get better jobs for more money, their husbands get transferred, they have children, they do all kinds of things. So if you're just relying on a treatment coordinator and they leave, then you're toast.
So you're saying if you have a good treatment plan coordinator, you should sterilize her and kill her husband.
Exactly. Okay. I think you're on something.
I think well, I'll tell you what. I know 2 different treatment plan coordinators as personal friends, and she got a job at an office doing $750. Took them for $20 an hour. Took them to $1.5 million. And for 5 years, she said, "Why does the hygienist get 40 and I only get 20 when I doubled your practice?" And dumbass wouldn't do it. So she quit and went to the other end of the city, and the 1.5 went back down to 750, and then some new guy, it was actually a girl, hired her and for the price of a hygienist, and took her from 750 to 150. And then when I go into the Small Business Administration, the 2 highest paid employees in every small business that's doing less than, say 5 million and 50 employees is the owner and their sales guy. And
Right.
everybody in the back, in the widget shop, in the manufacturing shop, in the plant is the lowest paid. And then you go into
Right.
dentistry, and that guy back there making a wooden bowl is the highest paid person because he's a dentist and she's a hygienist. But that person selling all the sales isn't making bank.
Right.
And they just got it completely wrong. So it's a cultural bias that if
Right.
when you're in healthcare, it's not about money, it's not about business. We don't sell, and we pay the people working on the shop the most. And in all other business, the people, your top salesman, there's many companies where the top salesperson in a company doing 5 million, 10 million a year, where the top salespeople are actually making more money than the owner.
Right. Exactly. And so we can we train the treatment coordinator to be a very good closer, so to speak, but that it is dependent upon the doctor, right? And it's, your friend, I'm sure she's very good, but they're unique, and there's no school to send your front desk to be a treatment coordinator that's going to close you $1 million worth of dentistry in a year. There's no school for that. So that's what we do, is we teach the doctor how to work with the team as a team approach with the treatment coordinator so they can close more cases. But, then we can just take if the treatment coordinator leaves or they get recruited to go somewhere else, then, we'll just bring somebody else in and train them up.
So do you call them a treatment plan presenter or coordinator?
Treatment coordinator.
Just treatment coordinator?
Yeah, that's what I just call them, yeah.
And what % of dental offices do you think have a treatment coordinator?
I would say probably about half of them, but usually the treatment coordinator is going to be the office manager in most instances, right?
Correct.
And so very few have a dedicated treatment coordinator unless they're like a specialty practice.
Yeah. And the average general dentist is making, for 2016, latest numbers, was making 174, but oral surgeons were 411, endodontists were like 360, pediatric dentists were like 390. All the specialists are damn near a double plus on the general dentist. And one of the two reasons the specialists have a double plus, dentists always say, well, they have higher wages. That's not what it comes down to. It comes down to specialists don't want to tell the referring dentist, I can't take your emergency. Last thing an endodontist wants is, hey, I got a patient with a toothache. Is there any way you see him? And you say, oh, no. You refer to me 5 molars a month. Here, why don't you call one of my competitors? I can get him in. So they all have 1 or 2 extra rooms they never use for walk-in emergencies. Your average endodontist, an oral surgeon, and pediatric dentist and orthodontist all usually on average have 2 extra emergency rooms. And then I call your office, well, is there any way I can come in today? Well, I don't have a chair. Oh, you had money for payroll, rent, mortgage, equipment, lab bills, supply. You had money for everything under the sun, but you don't have a chair? Why don't you buy a lawn chair and put it in the break room? I mean, so they have the infrastructure to get them in there. And they have treatment coordinators.
Yeah, they have treatment coordinators.
So they have the capacity, and they focus on closing the sale.
Right.
And they almost double. Almost every specialty doubles plus what the average general dentist does.
Yeah, and I have specialists that I train, and it teaches the same system, right? It's just the specialist, by the time you end up on the specialist doorstep, you got to do something, right? So their case acceptance should be higher, but they usually do have dedicated treatment coordinators and they're built for that.
Jeff, you know what I really wish you would do, buddy? I mean, if you go to Dental Town, so there's a 250,000 dentists. They've posted 5 million times. They post 5,000 questions a day. But if you just go in there and do a search for treatment coordinator, I mean, I just wish you would answer so many. I mean, do you bonus your treatment coordinator? Is a treatment coordinator in charge of collections? I mean, it's just pages and pages of questions, and it'd be good marketing for you. Because you answer the question, but in your signature, you can say Jeff Palmer, caseacceptanceacademy.com, contact information, all that kind of stuff. But it's you.
On treatment coordinator, that's a good one. Yeah, because I looked at threads on case acceptance, but not treatment coordinator. I like that one.
Yeah, and so some people get it. The specialists all understand it, but in general dentistry, only the $1 million practices get it.
Right.
And they record the phone calls. They put a lot of training. I mean, the dentist has 8 years of college. The hygienist has 4. The assistant went to a 9-month program to a year. And then the most important person in the office, the girl answering the phone, was her last job was she was an Uber driver, and she has no training. And the only reason she got the job is because she didn't talk during the interview, and the librarian dentist loved her. And so it's
and she hit her tattoos.
And she hit her tattoos. Yeah. That's kind of a regional thing. When you go up to between San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle, I mean, the dentists are sleeved. But by the time you get into Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, that would just scare everyone out of the room. But in Portland, Oregon, that's just the norm.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's very, very regional.
Yeah, I've not been there.
So what else? So what are my homies going to find if they go to caseacceptanceacademy.com?
So there's a bunch of free tools on there. You can go to my YouTube channel and watch some videos, and I go over. I give it all away on my YouTube channel.
But you realize on the YouTube, when you're answering those questions on Dental Town, if you got a YouTube video, you hit reply, then you go to your YouTube video, and you know how you put share and it shows you the link?
Yep.
The next button over is embed. You click embed, you copy that code, then when you go to the Dental Town reply, you hit the YouTube button, drop that code in there, and now you just answered that question with one of your YouTube videos. And then everybody in dentistry that does that, then their YouTube channel explodes.
I'm on it.
Because people will click that YouTube video, and then when they like it, they'll hit subscribe. I mean, they all get it. But how many YouTube? I'm a big fan of your YouTube channel. How many YouTubes do you have?
There's about 15 that are public, and then there's some private ones that I share too. There's probably about 30 or so on there, and I'm making more.
Well, you got 15 YouTube deals. You can even search the question of the name of your YouTube channel. I mean, I can tell you so many dentists and dental consultants and all that who YouTube channel exploded just by answering questions with their existing, YouTube information.
Cool.
Yeah. So what else can they find on your website?
Well, they can also find a contact me. So if they want to do a practice strategy session and talk to me, we'll do that same analysis where I'll have them pull the numbers for the past year. We'll look at their case acceptance rate, talk about how they're doing, and see if there's anything they can improve on.
How much money is it for my homies to call you, just to talk to you, to see if we're a fit, to see whether if we were on Tinder, I swipe right or swipe left? Which one is you want to date her? Is that swipe right? Right if you want her? Left if you want? So you're saying if they call you, the consultation's free?
Yeah.
And what is the typical, they're all driving to work alone, listening to this podcast. They're wondering if you're a fit. What is the typical dentist calling you and asking? What does that initial phone call usually sound like?
They usually know that their case acceptance needs some help, but they just don't know what to do about it. And they're not making their production and collection goals. Even if somebody's case acceptance is poor, if they got so many new patients coming out of their nose, it doesn't matter, then they're not the right fit for me. So my typical client is aware that their case acceptance is poor. They know they can be producing and collecting more, and they're leaving money on the table, and they want a fast fix. So that's why they're calling me.
Nice. So Tom, what do you have to say all this? What are your thoughts? You're just sitting there taking all this in, or are you just showing up to be pretty?
I'll take the other side. It's been a tremendous career boost to me to be able to sit there, and you and I were trained at a time where we were told by professors and that know your stuff, have your answers right now, and tell the patient what they need. And that was such a change for me to be able to sit there and talk to patients, show them what's going on there, tell them what the consequences are, and ask them questions, and boom, they're engaged. And that's been fun. That's been fun to see how they how they're willing to proceed and move forward with very little effort. You and I were trained to talk, and that was a change for me. So paradigm shift, if you will. So that is that's been fun to watch. The less talk, the better. And patients, they know you have a degree on the wall. You're a smart guy, you're a lady, whatever, and you can sit there and, like I said, you and I were trained to be the smartest man in the room, and it doesn't fly. You sit there and you'll get a lot of, well, I need to talk to my wife, or I need to go home and beat the dog, or whatever. They'll have any excuse under the sun to leave, but if you have them emotionally engaged, they're not leaving.
And a lot of dentists will tell me, they'll say, well, I don't have the personality to talk to patients, and I'm shy, I'm introvert, and I'm just not cut out to be that. And that's why I wrote an article a couple months ago called Doc Hollywood. I mean, when you start studying behind the scenes of Clint Eastwood, Humphrey Bogart, Marlon Brando, Laurence Olivier, Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, Charlie Chaplin, Henry Fonda, a lot of these people aren't like the people they played. And they're an act. I mean, from Orson Welles to Clark Gable, Johnny Depp. I mean, Elizabeth Taylor. So you can go to work and pretend you like people and like to communicate and like to sell. You can pretend. I mean, some of these movie stars play axe murderers. I mean, who was that? Kathy Bateman. What was it? Kathy Bateman in The Shining that beat that guy's knees. I mean, she was a sociopath, but in real life, she's not a sociopath. But when she shows up on Hollywood and they say take one, she's beating that poor man's knees and I mean, think of who was the guy in The Shining and Anthony Hopkins. I mean, if Anthony Hopkins was really like that, someone needs to put him in jail or shoot him. So if Anthony Hopkins can play, what was that sick movie he was in?
The Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs. If Anthony Hopkins can play Silence of the Lambs, Doc, you can pretend you have a personality and talk to patients and get some treatment plan acceptance, because if you don't, you're not a good doctor when 2 out of 3 people leave your operatory with an infection and have no idea, no plan on getting it, but they're going to go buy the next iPhone, they're signed up for Netflix and Spotify, and they're going to go to Disneyland, and they're going to fly Southwest Airlines to go to their cousin's first communion. They're going to do everything. They're going to spend all their money anyway. So your job is to make sure they get all their teeth fixed so they have less money to spend on the bullshit they don't need.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, and you guys can do it. And I really wish you guys would start posting your YouTube videos on Dental Town, answering questions. I can't believe we went 5 minutes past an hour. We're into 5 minutes overtime. Is there anything I wasn't smart enough to ask or should have asked, or?
No, I think you kind of hit on it all. You punched on the right points. You're familiar with this beast and how it kills dentists. And it's really a simple fix.
And let me give you a reality check again, docs. Listen to me. Spend all your money on consultants, and what will you do? You'll go to some institute for 6 weeks to learn TMJ. And right now, TMJ isn't even 1% of your practice. And heads up, all your TMJ patients are freaking crazy. And then you're going to go spend all this money going to these cosmetic institutes to learn how to do upper 10 veneers. Hey, here's an idea. Did you know last year you didn't do any veneers? You're an idiot. And then you're going to go spend $50,000 to learn how to do all on 4. And guess what? You're going to spend the rest of your life doing all on none. You've never done an all on 4. You're never going to do an all on 4. So go back to denture school. Forget TMJ. Forget crazy ladies. Forget all on nuns. Go back, and I want you to run a report on it's supply and demand. And your city might be very different than Kathmandu, Nepal, maybe very different than Beijing. I've lectured in Vietnam, Cambodia. So you're in this town. Run out all the procedures you've done the last 10 years. That's your town. I wouldn't go to Childress, Texas and open up a Toyota Honda shop. I'd open up a Ford 150 pickup truck shop. I mean, these are your people. These are your town. If your people said, look, we don't buy nothing but Ford pickup trucks, then be a Ford dealer. So in your so in your town, how many people are movie stars getting full mouth cosmetic dentistry and veneers? How many of them walk in there and give you $50,000 for 2 arches all on 4? Get real. These are your people, and it's just as easy to get rich in McDonald's as it is in owning a Ruth's Chris. And Ruth's Chris works in some towns, and McDonald's works in all towns. Find out who your people are, and then just get them. Look at all of your people who you already told them they have a disease, and you didn't get it done because your house is not in order. You have the wrong people answer the phone. You don't know how to close the sale. You're not measuring any of this stuff, and you can double or triple your practice. And my final thought is this. When I find a doc doing $1.5 to $3 million a year, taking home $500,000 to $800,000 a year, they're almost always in the flyover states. They're almost always in some town you've never heard of. And what are they doing? They're doing everything right in their market.
Right.
So just get your damn house in order. Get poised for growth. Put money into your team. Get your house in order. And then when you get filthy rich, I don't really give a shit if you buy a jet ski or a CAD cam. I don't care if you get a cabin or a boat. My recommendation would be to get a divorce and a new girlfriend, but that's a whole nother story. And that was a joke. But anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking to my homies. I thoroughly enjoyed podcasting. It was an honor to podcast you. I hope you both have a rocking hot day.
You're welcome. Thank you too. Thank you, sir. Hello, my name is Jeff Palmer, founder of the Case Acceptance Academy. I want to answer 2 questions for you today. Number 1, how do you know you need our help? Number 2, how do you get started? If you are a practice owner and you are asking yourself, how do I get my practice more organized? How do I train my staff? How do I improve my case acceptance? How do I reach my goals? If you are a practice owner and you are asking yourself any of those questions, then we can definitely help you. Our purpose at the Case Acceptance Academy is to provide you with hyper-effective and innovative case acceptance and administrative strategies, tactics, and systems that result in stable, predictable growth and efficiency. I package this in such a way as to help make your business into a franchise model, even if you never intend to sell or franchise. Where do you get started? If you go to caseacceptanceacademy.com and go to the free tools section, there's any number of tools there that you can use to engage with us before you ever talk to us or meet us. Just like patients, they want to know more about you before they meet you. There's any number of resources available for free on our website so you can find out more about us, what we do, how we do it, and how we can help you. So I look forward to meeting you or hearing from you soon. I hope you found the video valuable and the information useful. Like the video, share it with your colleagues and friends, comment on it if you wish, or go to caseacceptanceacademy.com for more ways to engage with us.